Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to feature a conversation I recently recorded with Corinne Bishop. Corinne is an Executive MBA format student in our class of 2021, and she and I recently sat down and talked a little bit more about her background, why she decided to pursue an MBA, what led her to Darden, and how her first few weeks in the program are going. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Corinne Bishop. Corinne, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Brett. Happy to be here.
All right. So tell us a little bit more about you. Who are you and what's your background?
So I currently am a regional sales leader for an education technology company. So I oversee a small sales team here in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. But prior to coming into this role, I have kind of a varied background. I actually studied dance in my undergrad degree. So danced for 20 plus years. That was my passion and my focus. Still something I love to do, just in a different setting. And then right out of undergrad, I actually was a teacher. So I taught middle school science and social studies for a little bit before I transitioned into my current role.
So had you thought about an MBA for a while? Was it a relatively recent thought?
It was pretty recent, probably in the past 2 years. So obviously I'm just getting started with the EMBA program this year. So I'd say it was probably 2 years ago I started thinking about it. And that really came about because of my experience at my company that I've been with now for 4.5 years. We had a really kind of wild ride of an experience of kind of the startup peaks and valleys. And that experience is what really got me interested in pursuing a more formal business degree.
One of the things that we talk about a lot here on the podcast is sort of what was the final nudge? You know, how did you figure out this is the time? Because you'll hear students say repeatedly, like, there's no great time, right? Your life's always going to be complicated, but maybe there are better times to do this. Yeah,
it's interesting because for me, I think actually what pushed me was learning about the EMBA program at Darden. It was something kind of in the back of my mind that I wanted to do, but once I kind of stumbled across, maybe I was Googling, I honestly don't remember how I first learned about it, but when I first stumbled across the EMBA program at Darden, it kind of clicked that I can do this. This works for my schedule. I can continue to work in my job, which I really, really love. And it was just the location was convenient, the scheduling, and obviously Darden is a great school. So it all just kind of was like opportunistic for me of, okay, this is a sign. I don't know why I didn't hear about this program before, but now that I know about it, I have to apply. And so it was pretty much a done deal for me at that point.
What about the program resonated with you?
So I really didn't want to leave work and go back to school full time. So I knew I was going to be doing something like an executive program or part-time program or something like that. So that was the first thing. But then once I learned after coming to events here at Darden and just kind of learning more about it, learning about the case method, I was so excited about kind of the experiential environment of the case method is, you know, hands-on in class, you're working through problems with your classmates, and then getting to go to work, you know, the next day after class and kind of take what you've learned in class and have that in your mind as you're going through your day-to-day in work. That was what sold me. It really, to me, was like, this is a tangible learning experience that's going to really resonate with my career day in, day out.
Some of our listeners may be surprised to hear your background, right? So yes. Dance to teaching to now working for an educational technology company. Were you, when you thought about the subjects you would encounter, so accounting, finance, decision analysis, you've already had decision analysis, global economics at this point. How did you think about those courses? Was it something that was, you know, intimidating to you, or were you concerned about it, or?
I was definitely concerned in the sense that I knew it was going to be challenging for me because I had never taken an econ class before this quarter. But I mean, that was part of what I was looking for. I was looking for that challenge. I was looking for that tangible learning experience. And I was finding myself in situations at work where I was saying there has to be a better way to do this, or there has to be more information about this sort of a situation that I could use. I just don't have that experience and that knowledge yet. And so I kind of felt like the hunger to learn those things. And it's sitting in class in those classes is so exciting for me because it is new. But again, the way that we learn in the case method is so hands-on and experiential that it's not just like sitting and getting a brain dump of complicated concepts I've never learned before.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually kind of diving in. So yeah, I was nervous, but it was also part of what I was looking for.
Yeah, we've had students who come from so-called non-traditional backgrounds or who haven't had a lot of these kind of business courses in their previous academic experiences say like, man, everything I learned in accounting was going to be new to me. That's great. I wasn't having to repeat anything. It was all upside for me.
Yep.
And, Darden, we do have a core curriculum, but, there's a lot of purpose behind that. I think it's important for people to have the foundation.
Right.
So you're one quarter in at this point,
Mm-hmm.
but plus a leadership residency. So, little over 10% of the way done. Getting ready to start on quarter two. We're going to talk a little bit about Brazil and what you're looking forward to. But how was your first quarter?
It was great. This is what all of the students that I spoke to prior to starting told me. And it is really hard to put into words until you're here, but it's amazing getting to know your classmates and the professors. It's a very collaborative environment. And so that's what's been the best part, is just getting to know everyone. And because we're still early in the program, there's still a lot of people I don't know super well. And that's such an opportunity that I'm looking forward to. It's such a diverse student body. Everyone is eager and, like I said, hungry to learn. So that's just been the best. And how helpful everyone is too. I think, when you're studying in this program or prepping for class, you're not like sitting in a room by yourself just trying to cram information into your head. It really looks like meeting up with your learning team, meeting up with other students, even just sharing like, hey, I put together this spreadsheet, take a look. Do you think that I did this right? And it's that experience. It's fun and you learn a lot that way. So just kind of getting used to that this quarter has been awesome.
Yeah, the collaboration part of it is the one thing that I would say is a pretty consistent theme. From interview to interview, we hear people talk about learning teams and obviously the in-class experience where you get to hear from a lot of different kinds of people. How have your in-class experiences, you mentioned the case method being something that really drew you here. How has class been?
It's like invigorating, maybe is the best word to describe it. You can't, I remember sitting in LR1 right at the beginning of the first quarter in one of our first classes, and something that really struck me was we were in this, pretty big kind of lecture hall style room, but every single student's head was following the speaker. It's not like sitting in a room and people are down looking at their computer or doing whatever else. Everyone is engaged. And that just lends like a new type of energy to the room. Everyone is listening to what everyone has to say. And that's beyond the professor. That goes for each other too, because we all have our contributions in class, which is obviously a big part of the case method and your grade and all of that. So there is a little of pressure in that way. You know that participation is important and you want to participate. But I think even more than that initial kind of pressure of the participation is just the excitement and the, like I said, collaboration of getting to hear from one another.
Yeah, we've had students talk a lot about the accountability that comes with just knowing you're going to have to participate and you're going to be asked to contribute in class, and that's going to be a way you're evaluated. It keeps you honest through the program, I guess, is the way that some students have talked about it. Like you're going to do that reading because you don't want to be called on and not have anything to offer.
Yeah, and I think it's beyond just, oh no, if I don't have something to offer when I get called on, I'm not going to get a good grade. to go back to the accountability, you don't want to waste your classmates' time. You don't want to just be called on and not be able to give anything. You want to be able to be in an impactful part of the conversation. Sometimes that looks like asking questions and, saying, I understand this piece, but I'm still struggling on this piece, because oftentimes there are other people in that same boat.
Well, the thing that is true is that participation takes many different forms. As you note, I think people always think it's like saying the right answer. Well, darn, there's not a right answer. Mm-hmm. It's worth noting that. Are you someone that has previously participated a lot in prior educational experiences? Sometimes we have students say, like, this was really different for me by comparison to undergrad or my previous grad program. I had maybe been a little bit more reserved in class, or, knew only lecture style.
Yeah, I think it definitely is new for me. But I think in terms of, it's definitely new for me. Especially in the sense of being in a large group. Because we are it's interesting because you are in a class of about 60 students, at least for our class, it's about 60 of us per class, but it doesn't feel like that. And I think that's really different. I've been in small classes that were really collaborative and you had to participate, but maybe there was only 10 of us. So that is definitely a difference, but it's been great.
So in the first quarter, you took decision analysis, global economics, and professional advancement course. Mm-hmm. What did you think about that slate of courses?
It was good. I like that we had two. Well, we really so you had two classes that were a little more concrete, I guess you could say, with decision analysis and GEM, and then we had PAC, which was more about our journey. What are our goals? So I guess you could say, quote unquote, soft skills, and really thinking about our career path. And I liked that balance because it kind of helps you keep everything in perspective. I'm not here to become a decision analysis expert and go and solve everyone's, analysis problems. So it helps you, you'll be in decision analysis and you're really kind of trucking along with that. And then to switch gears and kind of be in PAC and be able to kind of root back in, why am I here? What are my goals? So that was nice to have kind of the diversity. And then global economics added a whole nother level because that was a little more, we spent a lot more time talking about current events in that class. So I think that also brought another level of, now let's think about the world today. Where do we fit in that? So you kind of get these different aspects. I like that diversity.
Yeah, professional advancement course, we talked about it a bunch here on the podcast, but it's new for it to be in quarter one. It's traditionally been in the middle of the program, and kind of thought like maybe that's a little bit too late for people because of the big questions, that are really at the heart of that course are kind of the questions that this program is about in many ways. Like, who are you? Who do you want to be? What steps do you want to take to get there? Think about your career and your journey. It's also a great way to get to know your classmates.
Yeah, it really is.
So do you want to talk a little bit about, some of the ways that the course allows for that?
Yeah, it's really interesting you said that. It would have been a very different experience if we didn't have that opportunity to get to know each other's backgrounds. And I think, in class, we had various opportunities, both in kind of partners and small groups, to talk through, to do even some role playing, like practicing pitching yourself or pitching your idea, whatever it is you might be working towards. And so that was really great to have some experience, with one or two other classmates and kind of get to know them really, really well. But then in addition to that, we had some kind of more group setting situations where we went around the room and we had to share kind of our one-liner of like, this is where I want to go, or this is something I have to offer, or this is something that I want to learn about in this program from your classmates. You're kind of sharing that with your classmates with the goal of learning from each other. What I think that does then is, outside of that class, at lunch, at breakfast, offline, later, on the phone, on Zoom, is you knew who you wanted to touch base with to maybe talk through some ideas, or, hey, that person works in an industry I'm really interested in learning about, so I'm going to hit them up at lunch. And if we hadn't had that, I think Q1 would have looked a little different, because we would have been doing a lot of that discovery on our own, which still would have happened, I'm sure, just maybe not as efficiently and cohesively so that we all got to kind of hear about that from each other in one setting. So that was huge.
And you've had quite a few extracurricular events thus far as a class. So there was, after the first Friday of the first weekend residency, sort of a networking reception. Then on the second Friday of this, during the second weekend residency, there was a club night where you had a chance to get to know all the clubs and organizations that are part of the Executive MBA program, a +1 event as well. Have you been able to go to some of that?
Yeah, I've been to all of those. It's kind of like, why wouldn't you? You're here anyways on grounds. In my opinion, that's been my experience. The +1 event was, I think, really, really nice for everybody because we all got to know each other's partners, friends, family, whoever they brought. And that was cool because, and I, for me, I'm incredibly grateful for my husband because since starting this program, I don't think I have emptied the dishwasher once. I'll be really honest. That's something that's just like he's doing. So it's nice to be able to have him come and meet my classmates. And he's an important part of this journey for me and in supporting me. So it was nice to get to meet everyone's, family, like I said, and yeah, just kind of relax and get to know each other in a more social setting like that.
The +1 event is a good example of a kind of event I think the program team is thinking about doing more of, So I think from a programmatic standpoint, we think it's really important for all the people who support the students that are in this program to feel like they are also part of this experience. I think most of our students, when they report, I'm getting this MBA, they have a partner, significant other, family, kids. They will also say, we're all getting this together because ultimately the sacrifice is shared across the family.
Absolutely.
So, Q2 is upon us. It's Brazil. Are you looking forward to going to Brazil? I'm
super pumped. Yeah, I'm excited. I've never been to Brazil, so it's new for me. I also know it's going to be a great bonding experience again with my classmates and with you, Brett, because I hear you're coming with us.
I get to go on the trip, so I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. And I'm really excited for some of the company visits that we're going on as well. So I know we're going to Embraer, and we had to sign up for the company visits because they can only handle so many of us at a time. That one was kind of a quick, got to get in there. I know I was really excited to go and see that. So yeah, I'm just excited to be there, spend more time with classmates in kind of a condensed setting like that, and visit Embraer. So
how did you think about your format choice? Students all the time ask EMBA versus GEMBA. What led you to choose EMBA?
For me, it really did boil down to time. I'm not going to lie. It was just thinking about, can I commit to those weeks off of work every, I know it's over the course of 2 years, but still that's a lot. And also I think an important thing we all have to figure out with the program is just balancing your life. And I know that there are some other trips and things that I want to do with my family, with my husband, and just knowing that I didn't want to be stretching myself too thin. So for me, it really was scheduling. I also work, I know it would be an incredibly valuable learning experience anywhere you would go, but I also work in I work with K through 12 educational institutions in the U.S. And what I do on a day-to-day is really rooted in what's going on here in the United States. So I didn't feel this kind of pull of that's going to really impact my career right now because, like I said, I'm pretty invested in that sector that I work in. So I didn't feel like it was something that would drastically affect my current work.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it sounds like what you shared resonates with me because honestly, we hear a few different things. You talk to EMBA format students, they invariably will say, time was really the primary driver, schedule time, knew that they were going to get to do a global experience. That was great. But just couldn't make the 3 additional week-long residencies work with their schedule. Everybody's schedule is different. And then when you talk to the GEMBA students, what you sometimes hear is this is my last major educational experience, right? So I wanted to do the max version of it, and I wanted to go everywhere and see everything. We've had individual students go even beyond the 4 global residencies. The current record, and this will not be challenged given our recent global updates, but the current record is 7 global experiences. Wow. So 4 global residencies, 2 Darden Worldwide courses, and a global consulting project. The student went to South Africa, China, Western Europe, India, Sweden, Japan, and Latvia, and now works in Europe. So
there
how about
you go.
that?
Yeah, it worked out.
So it worked out. So, I think the reason why we have two formats is for people to have options. You've got some choice there, and time is really, primary consideration for a lot of people. And then just thinking about the program experience, when you sort of imagine what you want to do, how important, is that global component to you? How impactful do you think it would be in terms of your learning experience? So, as you think about the next 21 months, you feel like you're kind of honing in on a schedule. We sometimes hear from people that this takes a little while.
Yeah. I'm kind of settling into what I think is the new normal. We just had exams last week, so that was exciting, and we all were, gotta get done with exams. Have you finished yet? All this. And then Sunday rolled around and it was like, yes, did it. And then we have class this week and our first accounting class today and having to prep for that. And so it doesn't stop, right? You feel like you check that important milestone of Q1, but it's going to keep going. And I think just kind of settling into that routine. For me, I think I've figured out kind of my priorities, or at least I feel that way currently. I figured out where I need to, where I've had to change my schedule. And of course that's to be expected, but then also the things that I refuse to, let go of, certain things are, no, this is going to happen regardless of what's going on in school, in work. But yeah, it is an adjustment. I will say, just as like a slight tangent piece of that, is one of the things I did not think about, and that a lot of my classmates and I have been talking about, is I travel a lot for work. I can't fly on Tuesday and Thursday evenings because we have class, so I can't be in the air. So just even coming to terms with some of those things of when I'm traveling for work in the middle of the week, I've had to stay in Atlanta or wherever I was an extra night just so I can attend class. And that's fine. That's something that I'm more than happy to do. Of course, class is a priority and that's fine. But at the same time, it wasn't something I even thought about going into the program, and kind of had to shift my thinking. And I don't think I realized it till I was booking my first flights for some work trip. And I was thinking, I can't fly home on Thursday night. So just kind of adjusting to that.
No, that's right. And I think you make a good point. I mean, we tell prospective students all the time that you should treat the distance learning as, like you would any other class.
Mm-hmm.
The expectation is that you're going to be online. It's very hard to participate if you're not there, right. And you're going to be missing out on substantive, academic experience. And so, from a planning standpoint, but yes, for folks who travel, we know that does add some logistical complexity, but the time trade-off, we have a couple distance classes, during the week. But it does mean that you don't have to be here every other weekend, yes. Which I think a lot of people have told us that schedule would be very difficult.
It would be very difficult. And I like having class in multiple formats. I like having, like last quarter, we had quite a few of our econ classes online, and then we obviously had some on grounds. And I found that it was a different experience, and that I learned different things. And I think even some people participate in slightly different ways in those two settings. So I think there's benefits to that. And not having to go a long time between content. You kind of are getting it still on a regular interval. You have class every week, even if that's, distance. And so you're kind of like staying fresh with everything, I guess.
One of the things that students say is it also helps you feel connected to your classmates because you're seeing them online. Mm-hmm. You're not having to go, 3-4 weeks until you see them again. And we also hear from some of the faculty that they feel like the online setting is better for some of the sort of technical discussion, or sort of get a little bit more into the details of things. Whereas, they prefer to use the on grounds maybe for some more of the case discussion and some of the content that really works well in that setting. So I think they even appreciate having different venues. Yeah,
I know that this past quarter, Caraway would have us share our screens a lot online with our spreadsheets or, whatever it is that we were doing. So that's an easy setting to do that. And we could all have our own spreadsheets up, but we could also be sharing that in that online setting.
Yeah, and we've been doing this long enough, and the faculty have been doing, Robert Carraway, for example, somebody's taught Executive MBA, executive format students here for a number of years. So very familiar with distance learning, very familiar with teaching online. And I think the faculty really do have a good sense of what works well and how to best leverage that. It's probably the aspect of the program that I find that prospective students have the most questions about as they are considering the program. Many of our prospective students have not had online class before, or if they have, what they're imagining is a very terrible video. Like, hi, this is accounting.
Right.
So, it's not typically the live synchronous session, all your classmates online together. So it sounds like, you're enjoying the distance classes.
I am. Yeah, I think it's great. And like I said, I think people participate in different ways. You have the chat feature as a component of distance classes, as well as obviously the expectation is you show your face and, you communicate and you can raise your hand. And so you can still do all of these interactive things online. But you can do that from the comfort of your office or your home when we all are super busy, or in your hotel room. We're all super busy. So it's nice to just be able to do that wherever you are.
And you make a good point, going back to your schedule comment about non-negotiables. Those look different for different students, but almost any time management scheduling, advice is in your calendar, put on your non-negotiables first and foremost. And that probably looks like some combination of class and distance learning, weekend residencies, learning team meetings, but also family, personal stuff, things that are important for your own mental well-being. And then that gives you a sense of the time that you have left.
Right.
And that sort of may sound overscheduled to some people, but given the many different constituents you have in your life between your learning team and the people at home and people at work, it'd be really helpful to be planned in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
So Corinne, one sort of last question we ask pretty much everybody that comes on the podcast. What would be your advice for prospective students?
I think the best advice, at least at this point, that I can give is to be yourself and to bring your whole self, both to your application process if you're at that phase of it, but also to class and to the experience as a whole. Like you said, my background is dance and teaching, and I think when I was applying, I definitely had concerns about that. Was I going to be a competitive enough candidate in that respect? But, and sometimes I think I internalize that as, I don't need to talk about my dance experience. That's something I did, but maybe that doesn't relate to what I'm doing now. And that's not true. Everything that you do in your life and all of your experiences up until this point, when you decide to get your MBA, are important. They impact who you are, what you bring to the table. And business is a people business. Business is about people, right? So it's learning about how to collaborate with people different than yourself, and engage with people from different backgrounds. So bring that to the table. Bring whatever your unique self is in that whole process, and I think it will be more rewarding for you, but also bring a lot to your classmates.
Such a great point that you make, because I think from the admissions perspective, we are regularly encountering candidates who don't feel like they're qualified, or there are other people that are better qualified, or I must not be the kind of person you're looking for. And the thing that we say repeatedly as admissions committee members is there are so many different kinds of people who can be successful in this program. And we say that about the full-time residential program. We say that about the Executive MBA program, that our goal as admissions committee members is to try to have as many different kinds of people in the classroom. So to your earlier point, like the fact that you have a dance background and you've worked in education, and obviously you're now in education tech, that's not a candidate that we typically see a lot of in our applicant pool, which is a great thing. And we think about, where our minds go as admissions committee members is, well, what must that mean for the perspective that you would bring to class, and what you would contribute to your classmates' learning, and how much you encourage them to think about problems differently. And we're always thinking about the classroom experience. I think it's kind of, one of the things from an admission standpoint is fundamental to what we do because of how students learn here through the case method. So it's a fantastic point. I don't think we can say it enough, because there's nothing like applying for something that makes people feel just a little bit insecure.
Yeah, of course.
And the thing that we always try to remind candidates about is like, you have so much to offer, so much value to bring. You really want to just be your most authentic self, which I realize sounds, people are like, well, what does that mean?
Right.
But, just be genuine. What's important to you, what you're passionate about, what you've done in your life. Make sure that's all very clear to us, because certainly in a program like this, it'll all matter.
Yeah,
because
it definitely does.
The relationships and the learning experience, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Well, Corinne, recognize this is a big day for you. We're recording this on a Tuesday evening. You got a distance class upcoming, accounting on the horizon.
Our first accounting class, so wish me luck.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think you'll be just fine. But thank you so much for carving out some time for the podcast. It's great talking with you. I'm glad to hear everything's going so well.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks for having me.
And that was my conversation with Corinne Bishop, an Executive MBA format student in our class of 2021. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXECMBA @darden.virginia.edu. And until next time, thanks for listening.